C-spine, 72-inch SID. Why?
Because you need to get a whole C-spine.
Yes, but I mean, okay, why would magnification be different on a lateral C-spine compared to like an AP C-spine? Alright, so think of like an AP C-spine. Look at where the C-spine is. Take a look at a lateral C-spine.
Oh wait.
Where's the C-spine?
It's blocked by your shoulder.
That's right. Here, the C-spine, right, if I just bring this up, C-spine is real close to the IR, right, if I am AP. I go lateral, the shoulders push me away from the IR. Now there's SID or OID, correct? So to compensate for this OID, I need to increase my SID. Okay, so that's why lateral C-spine has a 72
Just like the sternum.
SID. Like the sternum, exactly. Okay, good. So who's gonna be our volunteer for this one?
I can do it.
Great, Johns.
Watch out the lights.
Jen.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
Open that. Open the light.
Hang on. Oh, you think for John?
Yeah.
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 Oh, you
What's
He
going
wants
on?
the lights off.
Alright, this-
He just wants the lights off.
Okay, and in this case,
Here.
go.
Go. Let's go.
I'm gonna start with this on the side.
I wasn't ready to come today.
Alright, go ahead and put your left shoulder against the eye. Perfect. Alright, so I will go ahead and turn off the lights here. And then, let's see, hopefully this is gonna be good enough. Are we able to see like this? Or do you want the lights on? Or actually, let's turn the lights on in the back here. I think that might be
Oh
wiser.
yeah. Look at this thing just dripping down.
Yeah, the whole night.
There you
Ooh, that bothers me.
go.
Yeah, how's that? Do we have a bit more ambient
Doesn't
light
look
now?
like if
Yes,
someone
much
leaves
better.
that on in my
Much
house.
better.
Oh,
Okay.
it's irritating.
And it's just gonna get brighter as we go.
I have to go and turn it off.
All right, so we want to center for the lateral C-spine.
Okay.
Where are we going to center?
Is it mid? No.
So what's the middle of the C-spine?
Let's see. 4?
C4, right? You have
Okay.
C1 to 7. So in the middle of 1 and 7 is 4.
Ooh, it's a good
So,
roll, guys.
How do you find C4 on a lateral?
Let's see.
Gotta go 4 inches above this.
Do we find the vertebral
Seven.
prominence in the?
Oh,
No.
Seven.
All right, so there are 2 ways for you to center a lateral C-spine. The first, more official way is to look for the thyroid cartilage right here, right? And look for the top of the thyroid cartilage.
Okay.
And that should be about the level of C4.
Okay.
Okay, so it's kind of like right under the chin almost. The other way to do this is to have your 10 by 12 set up and to take the light and put the top of the light 1 inch above the EAM, right? 1 inch above the opening to the ear. The top of the light should be right about here,
Oh.
near the top of the ear. So let's try. Okay. Now on guys, it's a bit easier to center because the Adam's apple is more visible, right? So you just kind of go to the top of that.
Got no back.
Right. But if you just take a look here, right? We're centering to the top of the cartilage. We're just like right under the chin. We look over here, you see the EAM. And the top of the light is just above the EAM. Okay, about 1 inch above the EAM. So that's how we find our vertical centering. Does that make sense?
So literally at the top of the ear, it's a light.
Correct. You can just put the light at the top of the ear.
Okay.
All right. So we get that set up, we line up our bucky, get the patient as close as possible. Okay, so their shoulder should be touching. Make sure that the patient is in a true lateral, right? So you come back here. And now we also need to do our centering front to back, correct? So, where do we center front to back? Where's the middle of the spine?
MCP? Or no, spine's gonna be
Middle of this
towards the
one.
back.
Okay.
That's right. So first instinct, right, is MCP. MCP is always the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about the spine is here towards the back of the body. It doesn't come straight down the middle of the body. So we're going to be slightly posterior to the MCP. So what you're going to do is you're going to feel here right behind the patient's ear. In fact, go ahead and feel behind your own ear right now. You'll feel this bony bump right here. This is called the mastoid tip, right here. The mastoid tip is where you will be centering to. So, mastoid tip right here. Go ahead and slide forward, Strong. Small step forwards. Very good. Right there. All right. So here's that mastoid tip. Notice that we're behind the ear, behind the EAM, behind the MCP. Okay, good. Good. Keep yourself pressed against the board so you don't move. Right. If you think about the spine, right? The shape of the spine is like this, right? It starts here, curves back like this, and then curves down here. So this is coming perfectly to the center of the spine. Okay, great. Now what? Next things we need to worry about are more positioning. So we have our patient. We think they are positioned, at least in a lateral. But we also need to make sure that their head is in a true lateral, that they're looking straight at us, right? So on your lateral C-spine, you do not want the patient to be doing this, right? Because that's going to throw off your lateral. You do not want your patient to be doing this, because that's going to throw off your lateral. So you do need to make sure that your patient is looking basically straight at you. Finally, you don't want your patient to be doing this. And the reason this is no good is because the chin is going to come back into your spine. So you want them to lift their chin up just slightly. Very good. Okay, so nice and straight. No rotation, no tilt, and no flexion. Does that make sense? Right.
Where's this centering again? I don't understand.
So this is right here on top of the mastoid tip. It comes through the mastoid tip right back here.
Oh, okay. Right behind the ear.
Right behind the ear. Good. From here, marker. Lateral, so marker goes in front. Okay. And then we can collimate a bit. So just be careful with your collimation here, because you don't want to clip off the vertebral prominence, right? Or you don't want to clip off any of the spinous processes. So make sure that when you collimate, that you still have all the spinous processes back here, right? You don't want to come so in that you lose your spinous process in the back. Does that make sense? Okay. Collimate, but collimate smartly.
So you're talking about like this way collimation?
This way.
Oh.
Right, because the spinous process sticks out like this, right? So if the spinous process is coming back this way, you don't want to collimate off the tip of that spinous process. Okay. Now, something that I do need to double check. I'm pretty sure I remember this, but let's make sure. Alright, so final thing then would be breathing instructions. Right, we did our marker, we did our collimation, we did our centering. So breathing instructions. Right, once again, we don't want the patient to be breathing because that's going to add motion here. So we're just going to ask the patient to hold their breath. Right, suspend respiration. Okay. One final thing. If your patient is able to, and especially if your patient is muscular or has really broad, thick shoulders, ask them to try and relax their shoulders and pull them down as much as they can, right? So just ask them to relax their shoulders down. That way you can get all 7C vertebrae, right? If the patient is scrunched up like this, go ahead and, right? Now the soft tissue comes up into the vertebrae and covers it. So you want the shoulders to be relaxed and as far down as possible. All right, hold your breath. X-ray, you can breathe, you can relax. Right, that is the lateral C-spine. Any questions? We're okay on that one?
And the collimation, you were saying like,
Mhm.
I mean, how do we, how do you know how much? I know you're saying not to cut off
Mhm.
the spinous process, but
So you can
How
just
do
feel
you
the
know?
spinous process back here. Right, you can feel your vertebral prominence right here.
okay.
So there's the tip of the vertebral prominence. Still have a little bit of light beyond it,
Oh, okay.
so you'll be okay.
And this way it has to be 12, right?
So yes, you want to leave this at 12.
12.
So you're only really going to be collimating horizontally. Okay, now from this position, we have two more views that we can do. We have the hyperflexion and the hyperextension. So first things first, do not ever do a flexion and extension on a trauma patient. Okay, do not ever do flexion and extension on a trauma patient. Do not do it on a patient who is in a C-collar. Don't take the C-collar off and force them to do a flexion and extension. That's a very bad idea. Now, I have been asked to do flexion and extension on a C-collar patient before, because ortho says the C-collars, they're mainly for support, for comfort, it's fine, you can do it. What do you think my response is?
No.
That's right, my response was, if you want this patient flexed and extended, you come down here and do it yourself. Right? If you're willing to take responsibility for this, then be my guest, right? I'll shoot the X-rays, but you'll have to be the one helping them flex and extend. Right? So, under normal circumstances, right, don't force a patient that's trauma, that's C-collar to do flexion or extension. Okay. A C-spine injury, right? A C-spine fracture should always be ruled out before you attempt a flexion or extension. So, how do we do flexion and extension? So, flexion is pretty simple. You just ask them to tuck their chin in as much as deep they can. I'd say start in this exact same position. You just have them tuck their chin in. All right, hold your breath, X-ray. There's your flexion. All right. You can breathe now, yes. I'm sorry. Good reminder. Good reminder. All right, what about the extension? Extension, just
As much as you
look back, try and steer, look at the ceiling. Yep, head back, look at the ceiling. Great. Once again. Okay, hold still, hold your breath. X-ray, you can breathe, you can relax. And that's your lateral extension. Okay, so really, you just start with your lateral position and either adjust chin down or chin up, and that's all you have to do.
So the centering and all that's gonna be the same with the
Mhm.
moving their head?
Just start with the same centering and just move your head either down or up like this. Mhm.
Is that common? Because I don't think I've ever seen it.
It's not common, but it's not rare either. That's how I would put it. Mhm.
So if they say C-spine flexion extension is not part of it? That would be
So,
order so far.
correct, normally it will not be part of it. The order will specifically mention
Okay.
flexion and extension. Good, any questions here? All right, and of course, right, don't force the patient into extension or force them into flexion. Just tell them do as much as you can, as much as feels comfortable, right? If it hurts you to force yourself in that position, don't do it. Just as much as is comfortable. All right, great. So, there is one final one, and let me double check something on this real quick. Because I don't know if they've changed the SID on me for this one.
book have more information, Mr. Floyd?
Sorry, what is that again?
Does that book have more information?
Does this book?
Yeah.
Yes, the big book always has more information.
I was like, why do you bring the big book?
Yeah, you'll have one.
Let's see. Where is it? Am I missing this somewhere?
Which view are you looking for?
So I am taking a look at the swimmers and I'm checking to see if the SID has changed to 40 on this one. Adjust, center, shield system. I do not see an SID of this one, so I'm going to leave this at 72. Because that's what I remember it as. All right. So, our final view in this position with this projection is the swimmers. We got over the swimmers with Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
You have?
He slightly
Slightly, yeah.
All right.
touched base on it, which is I think C7 and T1 or something.
Very good. So the swimmers, we are looking at C7, T1, right? Earlier, I told you for the lateral C-spine, you want the patient's shoulders relaxed, depressed, so that you can see this C7 nice and clear without the soft tissue in the way. But on quite a few patients, you will not be able to see C7 very clear, and you definitely won't be able to see the C7, T1 joint very clear. So what we're going to do is we are going to move the shoulders out of the way so that the joint space becomes more clear. How do we do that? We're going to lift one arm up, we're going to bring one arm down. Okay? So which arm goes which way? The arm that is closest to the IR is the arm going up. Okay, so in this case, John's left arm will go up, right arm will go down. Now, there are two ways you can do this. I will show you both ways. I'll also let you know which way is more common in clinic. So, method number one is to bring both shoulders back behind the vertebrae. So you're going to move both humeral heads back behind the vertebrae, behind C7T1. How? This arm is going to come up like this, right? Rest the arm behind the head like that. And then this arm is going to reach back this way. So by doing this, both humeri, right, are going backwards. Right. So, yep, like that. So, arm back like this, right? You could also bring the arm straight up like that, that's fine. But end result is that both arms, both humerus, are going back.
So you can't lock it in the back, both
You
hands?
You could.
like the sternum?
No, not both hands. No.
No.
You want one up, one down to like spread out the soft tissue. Okay, so that's one way you can do the positioning. The second way is like Superman style. So instead of this arm coming straight up or back behind the head, this arm goes kind of forward, right? So looks like this. Right, so one hand's doing the Superman thing, right? And then the other hand is coming back. So in this case, notice that this shoulder is going forwards, this shoulder is going backwards.
Oh.
Right, so this shoulder is going to come in front of the vertebrae, this shoulder is going to come behind. Still, make sure your patient's in a nice lateral position even though you're doing this. Okay? You can relax for now. Okay, so those are the two ways that you can sort of position the arms for the swimmers.
Okay.
Keep in mind that just doing this is not sufficient. If the patient is not stressing their arms, right, is not moving those humeri, this isn't going to do anything for you. You're still going to get a lousy image because those humeral heads are still going to be right on top of the spine. So you do need to force the patient to kind of move their shoulders either one way or the other, right? The shoulders do need to move. All right, as far as centering goes, we are going to be centering here at C7T1. Okay, this is going to be, I think, let me double check before I say something wrong. Annoying numbers here. That's right. So 2 inches. It is 2 inches above the jugular notch. So, patient's jugular notch is right here. 2 inches above the jugular notch. So my centering for C7T1 should be right about here. Okay.
So
once
it's
again-
not at C7?
So it's not at C7 vertebral prominence because the vertebrae doesn't come straight across like this. The vertebrae is angled like that. So you can't just judge it purely based off this.
Okay.
Now, if you can't find a jugular notch, then yeah, go ahead and use this as a general location. But
2
let me
inches above.
demonstrate here. Let me just demonstrate why it's not a great position. Right, careful, I'm going to slide this down. All right. And now I'm going to find your vertebral prominence right here. So I feel vertebral prominence here, right? But notice where my centering is. My centering is below this vertebral prominence. Why? Because the vertebrae is slanted downwards. I don't care about where the spinous process is, I care about where the joint space is. So that's why I'm lower than what you would palpate C7 as. Does that make sense? All right. So, very good. All right. Something else you can also use to kind of judge your location. If you leave your collimation open, top of the light should be right under the ear now. Do you see that? Top of the light is under the ear, not on top of the ear.
Kind of like the soft tissue.
Kind of like the soft tissue neck. All right. Once again, just make sure I've got my marker on here. All right. So we're gonna have our patient move the arms, right? So in this case, just bring your left arm up and forwards, bring your right arm down and back. All right, good. Make sure that our patient is lateral. Make sure our patient's head is still nice and straight. Good. All right, and so that would be our setup for the swimmers. So hold still, hold your breath. X-ray, you can breathe, you can relax. Okay? If you are not able to get, you okay there?
No, I'm falling asleep.
Alright. So we'll need coffee next time, I see. Okay, if you're not able to get a good swimmers, there have been recommendations that you can throw a slight angle on your tube, like 5 degrees, to kind of like move those humeral heads out of the way even more, keep them from superimposing. Just keep in mind, every bit of angulation you throw on the tube will slightly close up your joint spaces, right? Because your joint spaces are parallel, flat like this. If you're angling your beam, you're not coming straight through the joint space anymore. You're coming in like this, right? So you can put in a small angle on your tube, but be careful with it because you do end up closing your joint spaces.
So is it caudate or cephalic?
I think it was caudate, but once again, let me double check.
Yes, all that is a 5-degree caudal angulation.
Ah, perfect. Yes, 3 to 5 degree caudate. Yes, very good. Okay, great. So any questions about the swimmers here? Okay, and you can even perform the swimmers on the table as well. Right, it's gonna be tougher. The patient's gonna really need to like pull their right arm down and really pull that left arm up and make sure the shoulders are out of the way. But you can do this on the table as well.
Oh, okay. What are we looking
Yes.
for in the stores?
For this one is
C7,
C7T1 joint space.
So you could collimate?
You could collimate, but I recommend leaving it open, at least here at Harris Health. The reason is so that the doctors can count down to C7. Right? If you start somewhere in the middle, it becomes a bit more difficult to figure out where C7T1 is. They can make an educated guess based off like the size of the spinous process. It's like, oh, okay, looks like this one has a bigger one. That's probably C7, right? But it's a lot easier if they can just count their way down. Okay. Great question, Dylan. Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to see like this way how much is. So I know you were saying don't cut off the spinous process.
Correct.
But this way.
Up here.
Right. So we don't care about the front. This is all
Okay.
soft
And
tissue.
Okay.
maybe when they order it.
So yes.
Do you have a protocol for like cervical, like for Harris Health whenever they're looking for the cervical spine?
Yes. So the basic protocol is going to be a 3-view. It is the lateral, which we just did, the AP, and the open mouth odontoid. So lateral, AP, open mouth odontoid. And if your open mouth odontoid does not properly show the dens, you will then be required to do a Fuchs. Okay, so if you mess up your, so if your open mouth odontoid does not properly show the dens, then you do have to do a 4th view, which is the Fuchs.
So you wouldn't just repeat it, you would do the Fuchs?
You can try and repeat it. Yes.
And you would send both Odontoid and Fuchs?
Odontoid and Fuchs, yes. Yes.
I had a tech who, I think he did the cervical, and then he's like, oh, I don't like it, I'm gonna do a swimmers.
He doesn't know
Well, it's
what-
not like it's a replacement for you.
I don't know, cause he said that he couldn't really see, like,
Mhm.
the bottom one, so that's why he didn't.
Yeah, that's fair then. Yeah, so you get a big, really broad shouldered patient, sometimes you can only see down to C5, C6.
Oh.
You can't even see C7, right? So in that case, swimmers, right, to try and get that final C vertebrae more visible. I will tell you that swimmers is a tricky view. It's hard to make it look good, right? So the key is, at least in my opinion, the key is getting those shoulders out of the way properly. That's how you get better looking swimmers. But it's difficult to get the patient to cooperate with you that way. Okay, all right, thank you, Johns. Let me take this off you and let's get our next volunteer up here.
Is it still AP cervical?
Still cervical, yes, we're gonna do the APs. Hold on to that, please.
Look at
I
the
volunteered.
difference.
I volunteered first, so I don't have to do the Odontoid.
Oh,
Oh no.
I'll do
Why
T
didn't you
spine.
warn me,
I'll do
John?
T spine.
Hey, back against the board, please.
I'll do T spine. It's just
So-
my chest.
For the AP, because the spine is now against the board, we are now allowed to take this and bring it into our 40-inch SID. Stand up, do some jumping jacks. There are stretches.
Go by the
Large
window.
I stretched from a chair.
That's why you have to stand up, so you don't fall asleep while doing your stretches.
Just stand.
Hey. Well, just-
I don't have the energy with your phone.
How about you bring us coffee?
No!
That is a
I'm about to open that
consideration.
whole window. Open that one, open that one.
Bit concerned.
You're See,
If
Angelica,
I
what
can-
you do?
If I can leave the house early
I'm
enough.
concerned.
If I can leave the house early enough,
Oh.
yes. All right, so
He's like, so that's a no.
APC spine.
Might need to
First
take off
things
your
first.
mask.
As far as our setup goes, we need an angulation on the APC spine.
Mm.
So which way do we angle?
5 degrees.
Cephalic?
We do angle cephalic, but why?
Want to elongate the C spine? No? I don't know.
So how
See the joint space?
it is to see the joint space, but why does a cephalic angle let you see the joint spaces? Why doesn't a straight angle let you see the joint spaces?
It's all squished up.
Think of the shape of the spine and the
So the
cervical area.
spinous process are going down?
What is
The
that
C
shape
spine
of the
is
spine?
lordotic.
The C
Oh.
spine is lordotic, right? The C spine curves. It curves like this. So if you want to see the joint space isn't going to be like this. They're angled this way. So you need to angle upwards to see through the joint spaces. So we do need to put on a 15 to 20 degree cephalic angle. I'll go ahead and do 20 degrees here. Okay.
So do you want 20 for the test out?
Any number inside the range. That's why there's a range. So any number in the range.
Well, this is easy. Look, I'm right.
Alright. Next, we want to center in the center of the C spine. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll,
Can't do anything now.
here, let's make this smaller for now. We want to center in the middle of the C spine. Where did we say the middle of the C spine was?
C4,
C4, great. So how do we find C4 again?
thyroid,
What part of the thyroid cartilage?
on top of the thyroid cartilage.
All right. So in this situation, we are going to center to the bottom.
Oh,
You're correct. On the lateral, it is the top.
because we're angling.
But because we have an angle, you need to start your beam lower than normal, so that by the time it reaches the back, it's to the correct height. Does that make sense? So yes, lateral is going to be at the top, but AP starts at the bottom here, so that by the time it reaches the back, it is at that original height.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to estimate somewhere down here. And if I check. Not as easy to feel. All right. Should have made Johns do this one. Okay. And since, right, I'm making sure to center to this dot here on the IR, right, on the bucky. I'm not centering to the black line here on the board. Does that make sense?
I noticed that. That whenever you have an angulation.
Because look at where the IR is in relation to the front of the board. Once again, right? Just like why we center lower, why we center at the bottom of the thyroid cartilage instead of at the top, because the board is further back, we need to start lower than normal to reach the center of the board. Right?
So is that anytime you angle?
So anytime you angle, make sure you're going to this dot here rather than to this line. You're trying to get to the center of the IR, right? Not to the center of the face of the bucky. All right. Back against the board, please. Okay. So we have our centering. And of course, we're also going to be centering MSP, right? So now we need head position. So this is probably the trickiest part about the AP. When you do your AP, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take the chin here and you're trying to superimpose it onto the back of the skull, onto the base of the skull here. Basically, if you see the chin sticking down into the spine, that's a bad image. If you see the head all the way back and the back of the head is sticking down into the spine, that's a bad image. Right? You want the chin and the back of the head perfectly on top of each other so you can see as much spine as possible without superimposition.
Yeah, turn your head.
So let me go ahead, let me see if I can find you a picture of this.
And turn our head lateral.
Let me see if I can find you a good picture of this.
Were you falling out?
No, like I was super comfortable with that. I was like, I have to get up because I'm about to like knock out. But
Lousy images.
Also, that was a noise. I don't know. I thought you hit yourself or
I thought she
something.
sneezed. That's how they
Me
bless
too.
you.
It sounded like she sneezed.
I was like this, and I felt my arms falling. I was like, that's it.
Go look out the window.
I got the window. I was
Alright,
like,
actually, your murals actually doesn't have that great of a picture, so I'm not gonna try to show you it.
What about the pocketbook?
I was like,
Same
if I
thing.
can stay like that.
Oh.
That's all here.
I'll try and see if I can find something from your class, your seniors.
Like, what are you trying to find?
So basically, let me just, right, so let me just draw this out real quick
Like
for you
this?
guys.
This looks so good.
Lights coming up.
Lights coming on, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so C-spine, C-spine, C-spine. Okay.
That one looks like the chin is going down.
Alright, so sometimes your C-spines look like this. The chin, right, the mandible, the teeth are all down here in the spine. The back of the head is here. Sometimes the patient is looking up like this, right? So there's the teeth, there's the mandible, and the back of the head is coming down to the spine like this. Both of these are no good because you have something here superimposing the spine. What you're aiming to see is something that looks like this. Mandible and base of the skull superimposed on top of each other so that you see as much spine as possible underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, how would you do that?
Okay, great question. How do you do that?
You turn the
So,
head.
what you are going to do is, once again, you're going to feel for that mastoid process. Okay? And then, you're also going to look at the patient's teeth. So, go ahead and open your mouths. Find your top teeth. And find the tip of those top teeth. The very tip at the bottom, right? The sharp part, right down there. You're going to draw a line from that to the mastoid tip. That line needs to be flat.
So, ring, 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 ring.
Right? Good. Yes, like a telephone, right? So, if it's like this, angled down, chin's going to be in the picture. Like this, angled up, back of the head's in the picture. This needs to be flat. When this is flat, you should have superposition of the chin and the base of the skull. These should be nice and lined up. Does that make sense?
How do you do it on a patient?
Yeah, so obviously you're going to
Okay,
do it
so-
on a patient.
Let me see your
teeth, sir.
Sure you will. So come on over, patient. Come on over, patient.
I'm not sure if
Alright.
I'm finding the right mastoid tip.
We can't do it?
Okay, so
Can't do it?
Yeah.
I've got my mastoid tip right there. All right, show me your teeth.
Is this-
No, you can do teeth together.
That's right.
Good. Give me a nice smile.
Is it an
Right.
indent or?
All right, chin down slightly.
It's right here.
Good, head first, chin
Oh,
down.
dang.
Good. Back up just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
That's you don't have
Perfect.
one.
Right there. And that's how you do it.
Oh, yours is prominent.
Oh, John says?
Yeah, I can't feel mine.
Okay, we'll find yours.
Let me see.
We'll help you find yours.
Don't worry, my single find you actually.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you're right. But it's like right here, I think.
All right. So
Oh, wait, what?
we get this, right? So we don't need to open the mouth. Not for an AP, right?
What do we do?
All we're doing is lining up the mastoid and those, the tip of those upper teeth. Okay, we're centered down here, right underneath the thyroid. We're going to. So let me go ahead and.
Wait, hold on.
So as far as our light goes, we're doing the same thing we did on the lateral. So light, we're going to open up just above the EAM. Okay, since Carlos is a smaller patient, I don't need to have it open all the way, right? I can just open it up to right above the EAM, right above the top of the ear. I can collimate in this way as well. And then of course this is the right side, so I'll throw in my right marker. Right. So something like this for my C-spine.
So did you line up her mastoid with her teeth at the top of the light?
I did not the top of the light. I'm just trying to make this line flat.
So you just eyeballed it?
Eyeball it, yes.
Oh.
Now if you don't want to eyeball it, just take out your pen. Right, make sure that your pen looks flat. If you don't trust your pen, get a level. Right, but just try and get it as flat as you
Oh,
can.
no, I'm confused.
All right, hold your breath. X-ray, you can breathe, you can relax. That is your APC spine. So you've done these in clinic, right? But as far as the details, what you're looking for is centering underneath the thyroid cartilage, and then you're going to be looking for 15 to 20 degrees angulation, and then head position, nice straight AP, and then get that mastoid tip and the bottom of those teeth lined up nicely. Now, if you really don't want to use that, I do have an alternative for you,
I don't
which
understand
is not as textbook, but it should be pretty good still, which is this. You can line up the EAM here
that.
to this area right under the nose. So you line up the EAM to this area right under the nose. So this here should be about equal to this here. Right, this and this, they should be about equal. So to demonstrate on Carla, I've got the EAM here, and I've got this part right under nose. We call this the acanthion.
Okay.
We get these two lined up, nice and flat, and that should be our AP. Lift the chin up, keep going. So notice how this is angled upwards now, so no good. Chin down, chin down, chin down, all the way, keep going, more. Yep, there you go. So notice that this is angled downwards now, so no good. So lift it up slightly, good. That should be about correct. And now I'll just double check with the mastoid and the teeth, just perfect. And that is our proper positioning. So if you don't want to use mastoid and teeth, you can try using EAM and acanthion. Just keep in mind that's not textbook. That's not what the registry will ask you. Make sense? It still works, but it's not going to be what the registry asks you.
Mastoid and the bottom of the top teeth.
Bottom of the top teeth. The specific language should be something like draw a line between the mastoid tip and the lower tip of the upper incisors. Right, so those upper incisors, the very front teeth, right? Top front teeth, and then the tip of them, the bottom tip.
So are we looking at that line that's going down? That's where that hits this line?
We're not looking at, no, we're drawing our own line
Oh.
and we're making sure this line is flat. So we're not centering there, we're not putting anything there. All we're doing is we're putting our fingers one here, and then making sure that the line between our two fingers here is flat. Right, so once again, Carla, chin up. Right, if I draw a line here now, right? Now I see that my line is angled upward.
Okay.
So this is no good. Chin down. If I draw a line here and here, now my line's angled downwards. So this is no good. So chin, down just a tiny bit. Right, so from here, now this line should be flat between my two fingers.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It's a little tough.
All right, so this is a skill you need to learn now, because drawing these lines, right, you only need to do this one for C-spine. But when you get to head work at the end of the semester, you're going to be drawing lines everywhere. You have a line from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. You need to know the names of all those lines as well, right? OML, IOML, AML, MML, IPL. Well, you guys learned IPL, I think, right? So you do need to get used to drawing these imaginary lines and then figuring out an angle, how much those imaginary lines are angled. Okay, so 1 point here, 1 point here, and then just draw this imaginary line between them. Okay, So that is our AP. Any questions on the AP?
You said it was 15 to 20 degrees cephalic at the bottom of the cartilage.
Mm-hmm.
Running to the ion.
Okay. So that is one of our protocols for C-spine, right? AP and lateral. So we did lateral, we just did AP, or technically AP axial, but everyone just calls it AP. The final part of our regular C-spine protocol is the open mouth. So first of all, when you're gonna do the open mouth, do not bring it up here and then say, all right, let's center this and blast your patient with the light. Okay, you know you're about to do the open mouth. So close up your collimation so that when you come up here to center, right, you can use the laser, but you don't blast them with the light, right? You can open the light afterwards, but you don't need to flashbang them right now. All right, so back against the board. Step back as well a little bit. Stay nice and straight for me. Great job. So, open mouth. Once again, people say that this is tricky because you need to make sure that the teeth and the base of the skull are lined up. If your teeth are too low, it covers the dents. If the base of the skull is too low, it covers the dents. You need them perfectly superimposed to properly see the dents. So, how do we position the head to properly see the dents and keep things from superimposing it? Guess what?
That thing you just.
It is exactly the same, that's right, it is exactly the same as the APC spine. You find the mastoid tip, you find the bottom of the incisors, and you line them up. So exact same head position for both exams. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right, so in this case, I'm going to try out the EA Emerkantian method first, just to get myself in about the right place. So chin down slightly, good. Chin up very slightly, tiny bit more, perfect. All right, E, great. So my head position is now correct. The only thing I need to worry about now is opening the mouth. Here's the problem. Open your mouth. So Carla did a great job. She just dropped her jaw straight down. But a lot of people, when they open their mouth, they go, "Wah." Right? They throw their head back and go, "Wah." And that ruins your position, right? So, how do you prevent that? Proper communication, right? So tell them, all right, I want you to try and keep your head still. I only want you to like drop your jaw, just go, ah, right? Just mouth down, right? Try not to bring your head back. In fact, you can even sort of like
Hold
help
their head.
to anchor their head to keep them from pulling it back. Now, if you do notice that they go back when they open their mouth, that's fine. Just have them open their mouth, readjust the head, and then you can do your x-ray, right? But if you're able to, get your position and then just have them drop their jaw, it makes things a lot easier. All right, so let's take a look here. All right, head back just very slightly, tiny bit more. Good, mouth straight down, as much as you can.
Oh, straight down.
No.
Oh,
Oh,
open
mouth,
it.
yep, open it. There we go. So now for our centering. Our centering is right in the middle of the mouth. That is all your centering is. So don't center up here, right? That's not your centering. Don't center down here. That's not your centering. It's right in the middle of that open mouth. Now you'll notice that as time goes on, patients' mouths get tired and they start to close. That's fine, right? All you're doing right now is getting the centering. You do the actual shot later. So don't keep the mouth open, do all your centering and everything, then run back and shoot with the mouth still open. Because the mouth will not still be open at that point, okay? Unless the patient is really, really, really good. So open the mouth, get your position, have them close and relax their mouth again. Okay, don't force them to keep it open the entire time. That's just my tech trick for you guys. So, even though this looks below the lip, it's gonna be in the middle of the mouth when she opens it because I saw that earlier. Okay, still make sure that this is nice and lined up. I have my marker back here. And now I am ready to shoot.
It's not MSP, right?
It isn't MSP. Let's just slide it over.
Yeah.
Great observation. All right. Now, also, right, remember, you don't want your collimation super open, right? So just collimate to your marker, collimate under her eyes. All right, good. So in this case, I have 5 by 6. So it shouldn't get too much bigger than that. All right, so MSP lined up. Great. So just like before, I want you to keep your head still, bring your jaw down and open your mouth as much as possible. Go ah, run back, hold X-ray, right? And then great, you can relax. Right, the ah depresses the tongue so that the tongue doesn't go up into the spine either, right? So have them open the mouth and go ah, and that brings the tongue down, right? So that gets you as clear of a view of the inside of the mouth as possible, that we can go through the mouth and into the spine behind it.
So while we're taking the X-ray, like open your mouth and say ah.
Yep.
So
So-
the breathing instruction is
All right, so actually, hold on. Because,
That's
Breathing
not
instructions,
because
ah.
respiration.
so yes, that is how you should do it as a tech. But let me just make sure, because I'm pretty sure that's not Merrill's. Now that I think about it.
It says right here, have patient
Ah, it is Merrill's.
Ah,
Perfect.
beautiful.
Ah, okay, I got it right. Or maybe Merrill's changed it just for me. All right, but yes, perfect. So yes, you do go ah for your breathing instructions.
Okay. So open your mouth and say ah, X-ray.
Yes. See, the whole time I thought that maybe it was bond treaters. One of them just said like suspend or suspend, and I was like,
Respiration.
yeah, suspend respiration. Yeah, but the whole time I've been going off. So I'm glad to see that the book also agrees now. All right, great. Any questions about this one? Are we okay with the open mouth? Now, let's say that for whatever reason, you still cannot get the dens even with a well-positioned open mouth odontoid. For example, doing it upright makes it harder to see the dens. Why? Because gravity pulls the head down into the spine. So there's a higher chance of superimposition. If you do it supine, you're more likely to get it without the superimposition. But it feels bad doing all of this and then having a single exam on the table. So it's usually easier to just do everything upright. Now, if you cannot get the dens, you will do the Fuchs. Okay, or as Mr. Donahue says, you shoot your open mouth and then you say all Fuchs, because you
Yeah,
missed
you
the
gotta
dens.
do.
That's right, all Fuchs, gotta do the Fuchs now. So, how do we do the Fuchs? In this case, we are now going to line up something different. We are gonna line up the MML, the mento meato line, I believe. Actually, hold on. Sorry. Let me double check again. Double check. I want to make sure I am teaching you the correct stuff.
Now you can make a couple of different videos into this one hole.
Hmm?
Girl,
You should
you're
make like
slaying.
clips into this one hole.
It's annoying uploading all of them. That's why I'm like, let me do a long one.
Tip of the chin and not
So I'm gonna do
the-
cervical and then T-spine
Alright, so not quite and then tip of the chin.
to
not
keep
the-
track of all of them.
Alright.
Me Uncle Stylo.
Okay, so it's not quite MML, I apologize. It is mastoid tip to the mandibular,
Mental.
yes, to the mentum,
Say that fast.
the mental point. So basically, corner tip of the chin right here to the mastoid tip back here. So lift your chin up, lift your chin up, lift your chin up. Good. So I'm gonna make this nice and flat here. Right? Mastoid tip to the mental point. Right? So I'm shooting basically right here underneath the chin. So I'm just gonna put my central ray just underneath the chin, and that's gonna pass right by that mastoid tip back here as well. Right, once again, make sure that my head is nice and straight. Very good. And this is my fuchs. So just make sure my marker's in here, and this is my fuchs. So what are we doing? We are basically, when we do this, we are opening up that giant hole in the base of the skull. What is that hole called? Foramen what?
Vertebral foramen? No.
The giant hole in the base of the skull. There's something
Oh,
big, it's giant.
magnum?
Magnum, yes, the foramen magnum. So we tip the head, open up the foramen magnum, and now the tip of the dens will show up here inside the foramen magnum. Okay, so that is the purpose of our fuchs. All right, so just 40-inch SID, perpendicular beam, aim right here underneath the chin, line up the chin and the mastoid tip, the mastoid process. Okay. It's pretty straightforward.
Wait, so she leaves her mouth closed?
She leaves her mouth closed on this one. This is no longer the open mouth odontoid.
Just literally
Wouldn't
at
the
the
mandible and
chin
everything
and the
superimpose?
tip of the
It
chin.
will not,
Just elevate.
because we're elevating it. We're tilting everything like this.
Hmm.
Shooting from underneath now.
So actually, let me show you what the picture looks like in the book. By the way, what time is it? How much time do I have left?
It's 8:06.
8:06. Oh, okay, perfect. So this is what you should be aiming to get. And Carlos, come on, you can relax and take a look as well. So this is what you should be aiming to do. Here's your foramen magnum, and you see the tip of the dens inside there?
Oh,
Almost like it's framed inside that hole.
Hmm.
I like this better.
So it's like underneath his chin?
That's
or-
right, you're shooting right underneath the chin.
Okay.
Right, and that's how you get this opened up. Right? Don't need to bring it up too far. Right, so mastoid tip, tip of the chin. Right? Good. So perfect.
In the center?
Mhm. That's good enough. And you just center right here underneath
Underneath
the
the
chin.
chin.
Oh, okay.
Right, so that is your fuchs.
So if they're guaranteed to get it on fuchs, then why are we doing open
Yeah.
mouth odontoid?
Because on the open mouth odontoid, not only do you get your fuchs, but you get your lateral masses as well for your C1. So you've got your C2, you've got your dens, and you also have the lateral masses hanging down here on the sides. You do not see all of that on the fuchs,
Oh.
and especially not without superimposition. Okay. Now, we do have something else, which is basically the reverse fuchs. So you just take your patient, turn them PA. All right, turn your shield PA as well. So,
Turn your what?
turn your shield.
Oh.
Loosen that.
We're doing all of this. We're doing open mouth and a fuchs.
What's that?
Are we doing open mouth and fuchs
For test out?
What do you mean?
for testo?
Those are possibilities. They're not going to be mandatories, no. All right, and so for this one, we have the Judd method. Right, so Fuchs is AP, Judd is PA. Right, same idea though, so just lift the chin, put the chin over here on the IR, nice and close. So get that nice and lined up, mastoid tips to the mentum. Make sure your patient is nice and straight. Right. Whoops. Oh, sorry, let me adjust this board just like that. It's got slightly off. Okay. Good. Just touch the tip of the chin there. Very good. All right. There's our light.
Where are we sitting?
Okay, slide it over towards the side. Okay, so it's basically the Fuchs, just PA. That's all you're doing here.
So how do you know where we're centering?
Hmm?
We're still
So-
at the tip.
Yep, so in this case, it's still going to be right here, coming through the mastoid tip. All right, so Judd method. So you've got Fuchs, and you have your Judd. All right, same thing. All right, just hold your breath, hold still. X-ray, you can breathe, you can relax. All right, you can step back. Now, for example, if your patient feels uncomfortable putting their face towards the IR, there are several things you can do. For example, you can just take a paper towel or something and tape it here as well. It's kind of like a temporary screen for them. Right? People feel more comfortable putting their face on the towel than the IR sometimes. Right? So something you can do. Just make sure you don't put something here that can cause an actual artifact. So don't use like a cloth towel. And of course, if the patient doesn't like putting their face towards the IR, best thing to do is just not do this PA. The best thing to do is just do an AP, do a Fuchs, don't do a Judd. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Thank you, Carlo. Let me take that off you. Okay, what do we have left?
I know.
Oh, yes, I know now. Okay, who's going to be our next volunteer? I remember what we have.
Go ahead, Angela. Wait, is it still C-spine?
Yes, still C-spine. Hold this, please. Yep, spin around. Thank you.
It's loose.
Feels loose. All right, back against the board.
What's the camera?
Hmm?
I want to flip it on you.
Oh, that does seem kind of
Yeah,
close.
it's like I'm gonna fall.
You just said it.
Here, let me.
Is the Judith on here, Mr. Paul?
What is that?
The Judith on the workbook thing?
What about the jewelry?
Pocketbook. Is it in the pocketbook?
The PA.
The Judd?
Judd.
Yeah.
Probably not. It's probably not in the pocketbook. Careful. I'm gonna slide this behind. Good. All right, so next up, we're gonna talk about your favorite position that has carried over from last section. That's right, we are doing obliques. We have oblique C-spine, both AP and PA. Now, I do need to check Merrill's because on Bontrager's at least, they had a certain SID. Let me make sure the SID is still the same. Okay, good. So on the obliques, so let me turn you, Mansi. Good. So 45-degree oblique. What do you notice about the C-spine? What do you notice about the distance from the C-spine to that IR?
A little bit OID.
We do have OID, right? So because we are adding OID when we oblique the patient, our SID is going to return to what?
72.
Yes, we're going all the way back to 72. Careful, Carla.
Is this the one I turned my head?
Yeah, so this is the one where you can turn your head. Now, whether or not you should turn your head is up to debate, and we'll talk about that. So, first things first. The oblique is like a mix between the lateral and the AP, because an oblique is, between a lateral and an AP. So you have the lateral SID, which is 72. But you also have the AP angulation, which is how much?
15 to 20.
15 to 20, in which direction?
Collapse.
Cephalic. That's right, we're aiming upwards. All right, careful, Carla.
You're gonna hit the table.
Can you just move it?
No, that's the table is. I don't think. Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
Just don't try and raise the table because it's locked. All right. So, as you can see, there is something tricky about the oblique here, which is you wouldn't be able to do this with Carla, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So,
Wait, what?
Because you have to put it
You
down.
do.
So-
They're fun.
in that case, if you had Carla as a patient,
Be like, yeah.
what sort of sure, what kind of compromise would you make?
You can put me like on a stool thing. I can mostly have something.
So we're gonna make it taller?
Yeah. No?
Or you could flip the IR.
So the compromise that I would recommend making is forget the 72 inch SID and just bring it into 40. And then this will give you enough clearance here to actually do it properly. Does that make sense? All right, so just as an example. All right, off please.
I locked it.
Oh.
Oh, it does hold that way.
Yeah. I was like, I know it was bad.
Also, can you still
I don't
go it
trust
down?
it. Yes,
Wait.
I don't trust that.
You
Yeah,
can do it
the
back.
bucket. Oh, the bucket can go left.
It could, but it's still gonna hit the plastic base underneath. And yeah, so for Carla, for example, I would just take this, come on, just bring it in this way, 40 inch SID, right, and then go down as low as I need to. Right? This is what I'll do in Carla. Right? On a taller patient, then yes, I'll go ahead and I'll leave it back here at 72. So let's try this again. All right, that's a little bit less scary with that out of the way. No, that's still scary. What is that, Nancy?
Kirby, centering.
So our centering is going to be the same as your AP. It's going to be right here underneath the cartilage.
So 2 inches above the jugular.
No, that was for your swimmers. Let me adjust this as well. Okay, so oblique. Just like your other obliques, this one is going to be 45 degrees. So just come back here. Make sure your patient's shoulders are in a true 45-degree oblique. Right. Now, slide towards me. A little bit more. Good. All right. So actually, let me just double check something again. Sorry. Let me just double check this.
So we need this many cervical projections.
There's a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
I was okay
Yeah.
in the beginning. I'm like, okay.
We haven't got to T-spot yet.
T-spine is not bad though.
How many are there?
I mean, no, I don't think I know of this AP line.
Did you know about all this for C-spine? Exactly.
It's really AP lateral. And it's just like a chest, but they call me,
There might be obliques too for T-spine.
it might be, but they said we don't really do it. Mr. Donnie said we don't really do so we shouldn't learn that.
I don't know, is that bad?
It's almost 8:30.
Damn, the video's been going for 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Because we're taking the little gaps. I didn't stop.
Can you edit it and cut the? No.
That's too much work. I was thinking about stopping when he was there for a while. But I'm like, I mean, then it'll be like 45 minutes and then, what, 15 minutes? I was like, there's no point.
Yeah.
Or 10 minutes.
What are you looking for, Mr. Friend?
So I was looking for something better than center the spine to the center of the eye and put your central ray in the center of the spine.
What?
But that's pretty much right. So because, like, for example, when we did the lateral, right, I said, okay, you're going to be going to the mastoid tip, right? But when you're doing the oblique, it doesn't have anything like that. It's just like, yeah, figure out where the spine is and put that in the center. So unfortunately, I don't really have too much more for you than that. As far as me, what I do, right, is I just make sure that when I turn on my light, right, and I move the hair out of the way, I can see light on both sides of the spine, right? As long as I have light on this side and I have light on this side, I know I'm relatively centered, right? So that's my technique. But I don't actually have a specific centering for horizontal for you, at least based off the book. All right, so I'm sorry about that.
Light here and back here?
Right, so light on one side of the neck, light on the other side of the neck.
Okay.
Right, so just try and get that relatively even. So the same amount of light on both sides. All right, and so yeah, they'll be pretty close.
So what's approximate centering?
Mid neck.
Is it mid neck?
Mid neck. Yes, yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, for this one, let me go just a little bit more. Okay. So, now, as far as head positioning, there are two things that you can do. The first is to keep the head perfectly in line with the body. Good. Chin's very slightly up. Perfect. Head perfectly in line with the body. Okay. There is a second method. This is the method I prefer, although Merrill says that it's not as good. And this one is to have the body oblique, but the head lateral. Turn your head all the way towards me. Great. So this is the second way you can do it. Both methods are trying to accomplish the same thing, which is to avoid putting the mandible, this part of the chin right here, on top of the spine. Right? You don't want this covering your C1, C2. So either you keep the head straight and you lift the chin up to move this forwards and out of the spine, or you turn the patient lateral so that they superimpose each other and are out of the spine. Okay, so either way is fine. This way the book says isn't as good because you are putting the top spine in more of a lateral position rather than an oblique. Right? But for test out, I am okay with either way. You can do a true oblique top and bottom, or you can do head lateral, body oblique. Okay? Either way is fine with me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I could just do oblique and just.
Correct. So if you do oblique though, then you do want to make sure that the chin is up. Right, so if you bring your head down like that, right now those edges, the tips of the jaw here, right, we call that the gonions. Those gonions will be superimposed on the spine. The chin does need to be up. All right, great. Any questions, dear?
Hands?
Hmm?
Nothing. Oh, yeah.
And straight down.
Breathing instruction.
Breathing instructions, same as all your other spines, which is just asbestos. Just hold your breath. X-ray, you can breathe. In fact, at least for the C-spine, the only thing with unique breathing instructions is the open mouth with the ah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Good. So, not too bad. Great, let's do the PA oblique. So, turn to face the board, please. You do. And if you wouldn't mind, turn your shield as well.
Yeah, it's too bright in here.
Oh, yep, turn your shield. Yep.
You just pull it.
No, the side thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's noticeable.
It's because of the angle. All right, speaking of angle, because we are going PA here, our angle is now gonna also have to flip. So what kind of angle are we going to have? Caudad by how much? 15 to 20 again, yes. So in this case, 90 minus 15 to 20. So let's say 70. Okay.
Damn.
Okay. Great.
Mr. Fong,
Yes.
how do you expect me to do this?
Use a smaller angle. Instead of 70, use 75.
Oh.
You're gonna have to grab a stool.
All right. So slide forwards. Good. Bring this right foot forwards as well. Perfect. Okay.
Try grabbing
Careful with
the
the slide as
wire.
well.
I can't even grab it.
Just use a smaller angle and choose a small partner as well.
I have
She's
no
the
other
smallest
small
one.
Partner.
Did we have Monty there? 'Cause-
Okay.
She
oh,
is
no.
the smallest one.
Oh, talk to me. Maybe we can make it 40-inch SID instead to make things easier. Right, but this is how you're supposed to properly do it, right?
I don't even know how people to do it.
And what if the patient's tall?
Sit them down.
Oh, put him in a chair?
Yeah, just put them on a chair.
Put him on a chair.
Yeah, just put your patient on the chair. Then.
I was like, I don't know, I've never had these conversations before.
It's like, I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time relating. I'm doing my best. Okay, so head straight ahead. Okay, chin up.
No, he's gonna relate because he just had trouble with me whenever he put me on there.
All right. So, right, just like your AP oblique, right? But now we're just PA. So, 20 degrees cauded, once again still centered into the dot. So that's why it looks off here on the bucky. Okay. We are mid-neck because I don't have anything better for you. Okay. And then the head is either going to be looking straight for your oblique, or it's going to be, once again, in a lateral. Right, so you have the choice, right? It can be a true oblique, or it can be a lateral. All right. Let's make sure we're in a nice oblique first. Okay, as far as markers, follow your normal oblique rules. So right now, if the left side is closer, I would want to switch over to my left marker here.
Right.
Or sorry, right marker. Right side is closer, right marker. Okay. Right. And then as far as centering goes, right now we're looking at where this beam exits. And this beam should be exiting here around C5. Okay, so this is going to be exiting lower, right? So it enters higher, it exits lower. So actually, maybe I need to drop this down a tiny bit. There's my- something like this. Okay, so exit point's gonna be down here around C5. So you're gonna enter up top here at around C3 and then exit around C5. Okay. Breathing instructions are still the same. It's gonna be hold your breath, X-ray, breathe and relax. Right, so the obliques are really similar to each other. Only difference is angulation. All right, you can relax, Monsi. We do have one final thing for C-spine, I believe. You okay?
How many face lines?
This should be the last one. Let me check the syllabus, but I think this is the last one.
Are we gonna
I
be
didn't even
able
know
to
it was
do
gonna be this many.
thoracic?
Yeah, after the C-spines.
This
So,
is still 2 weeks.
axial, open mouth, fuchs, jaw, oblique, lateral flexion extension. Yes, so we just have one more C-spine to talk about. And then the T-spine. So actually, who is our final volunteer?
Let's see.
Okay, great. Angelica.
Monty got it.
She ought to take off her shoe.
So you don't need to put on the shield just yet, Angelica. Instead, we're gonna need to clear this table.
These spines oblique, do y'all really do them in like, you
I've
really
never-
do them? 'Cause I've never seen
I've
one.
never seen.
I've had to do them in clinic before. They're not common, but they're also not rare. They do pop up. Uh-oh. All right, don't move that yet.
Oh,
Don't move that yet.
I forgot. You're tall.
No, don't move that at all.
Oh.
Because for our C-spine, we are going to be doing a cross table.
Oh no.
So,
People that have a C collar?
that's right. If your patient has a C collar
Is this a
and
trauma?
cannot stand up, and you need to do a lateral, you will need to do the lateral while the patient is laying down in the C collar and you shoot across. So, Angelica, if you would please.
You're doing the trauma lateral?
Correct, trauma
Or
lateral.
something cubitus?
So not a decubitus. Patient's not turning on their side. Or
That's what it's called.
actually no, I guess it is a decubitus. It's a horizontal.
Horizontal beam.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's a dorsal decubitus. I don't know. Just feels weird for me to call it decubitus. But
So they're laying on
correct.
their back
They are going to lay on their
or
back.
on their side? Oh, on the back.
Yeah, they're laying on their back because they have a C collar on and they cannot move. They are not allowed to move.
Do you have a cassette holder?
What's it?
Do you have a cassette holder?
We do not. As far as I can tell, we do not. Well, I shall be your cassette holder.
No, but you don't want you to get all the radiation.
Well, you're not shooting me, are you? Careful, careful, careful.
Oh.
Alright.
Oh, they have sponges.
Ah, they have the step sponge.
Put
Huh.
your finger here.
That's cute.
Yeah, do the upper extremity over here. Fingers.
Okay, so first things
Take you
first.
with you? Yeah.
If the patient is in a C collar
Like, bam.
and they're on the table, they're most likely on the backboard. So you can take the patient and you can slide them. So we're gonna have our patient slide towards their left. Now, of course, the patient's not actually the one sliding. Just pretend that you're sliding them on the backboard, right? You're sliding them over this way, right? Patient's on the backboard, right? So got one person on one side, one person on the other, like 1, 2, 3, right? Slide the patient over. Okay, and of course the fellow's not here because the patient is in the C collar. Okay. So why did we move the patient to the left?
To get as much society as possible.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
OID. OID.
Well, as much SID as possible.
As much SID.
Mhm, right. OID is going to stay the same because it's going to be the distance from the shoulder
Oh, SID.
to the neck. No, just relax, right? You have a C collar on, you can't move. So if you would please just hold that. Great. So we're going to have our patient try and relax their shoulders as much as possible. And then we're going to do this exactly like a lateral C-spine. Right? So notice that I am on a free cassette right now. I'm going to take this, bring it down to the level of the mastoid, which is right there behind the ear. I'm going to take this, oops, not that one. Slide it up. Right. I'm trying to look for where that C4 is going to be.
So the red line is at the, right behind the ear?
Mastoid, yes. All right. Now, I'm going to collimate. So right now, I'm having a tough time finding C4. So I'm going to try something else. I'm going to line myself up with the IR instead of my cassette. Okay. Get myself into a 10x12 collimation. You see that, right? So I'm collimated to the IR, right?
Mhm.
Maybe just do the wiggle again, right? Collimated to the IR. And so we said earlier, when we do have our 10x12 collimation, and we are centered at C4, where should the top of the light be?
Above the
The ear.
Good, right above the ear. So I'm just going to take this light and put it right above the ear. So if I can't find my C4, I just take the top of the light, put it right above the ear, and I'm going to adjust this IR to match. Bring it nice and close. Perfect. All right. Patient relaxes their shoulders. And this is my positioning for cross-table lateral trauma C-spine. All right. Collimate in.
So would you miss the the prominence
Yes, dear. I've got light on the table.
or the
What
IR?
I mean,
We don't need to build up, right?
right. So in
Okay.
this case, yes. Since you can't really build up like this, that is something you might be concerned about. So depending on the table you're working with, some tables don't have this metal thing here, and so you can maybe put the IR a little bit lower, like here on the edge of the table. Or maybe instead of doing it on the table, you're doing it in the patient's stretcher, in the bed, in which case you can just hang the IR like right here on top of the rails, okay, underneath, so it can go lower than the mattress. But do not have the patient sit up, put sheets underneath, and then lay them back down, because that defeats the whole purpose of doing this. Right, so no, you're not really going to be able to build up your patient on these trauma C-spines. So
And then we
that's
put the
okay.
marker.
Yes, so where does the marker go?
Oh,
Yes,
You
there we
work on the
go.
table?
like looking at the table.
Marker would go right here.
Left.
Left marker goes left side's closest, yes.
Okay, top of the light above the ear, and
Mhm.
then the mastoid tip.
Yeah, so just like your normal lateral, but on the table. Any
The
questions?
centering is C4, but
Right, so I'm having a tough time finding C4 on our patient right now because they're laying down on the table, their shoulders are kind of scrunched up. It's a bit hard to see the anatomy. I don't want to reach over there and just start palpating for the cartilage. So I'm gonna estimate my centering based off the top of the ear. In a trauma situation, right, don't need to be perfect centering, but just estimate like that.
Pretty sure patient's asleep.
Well, it's all the sedatives, all the painkillers they have to give.
As long as they're not in pain.
Okay, are we okay?
Yes.
Good. 2 more projections and we're done. 2 more projections.
T-spine?
These are T-spine. Yes,
Oh.
we are done with C-spine.
So we only have 2 for T-spine?
Now, so for T-spine, I placed the
You sure?
swimmers under the